If you like this video, please click the like button. If you want more content, click subscribe. If you click that little bell and click all, then you'll get more content notifications. Hello everyone, this is Venus Brown. Today I'm going to be doing a review and discussion for Handmaid's Tale Season 5, Episode 4. This episode was labeled Offred for the lovely note that Serena sent to June with her name that she was given while she was in Gilead while under Fred's command. Seriously, Serena, what the hell? Now, please don't mind me. I have a lot going on lately. We had a hurricane go through. We've been trying to take care of filing a claim for our missing shingles mostly, and maybe a little bit of leaking. And I have a live stream coming up tomorrow, which involves some food and creating a little Halloween themed house out of chocolate cookies, I believe. But I still wanted to get this discussion done, so I am here ready to talk. Now we start this episode with this scene of June swinging her daughter, and she is kind of in a trance, just staring off into space, and this lady comes up and seemingly compliments June for her lovely daughter, except she knows her name, Nicole. She knows June, or at least she knows of them, because she is one of Serena's acolytes and has a fucking few screws loose. I think we all know that June and Serena are both on their own little level of crazy, but these acolytes, they are on a whole nother level of crazy. The real issue, though, is that this lady threatens June, threatens her daughter, not with life and limb, but insinuates that June doesn't have the right to her child, that the child belongs to God. June doesn't deserve her child. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck what planet you came from. You don't get to determine that June doesn't deserve her child because of the rumors that you've heard. It doesn't matter. It's none of your business. Either way, the woman was way out of line. I don't blame June one bit, even if she was completely lucid and had every freaking screw intact. She had every right to go after that woman for what she did. That is so fucking scary for somebody to come up who obviously doesn't know you from a hole in the wall and seems to know your name, your daughter's name, and know all this information, and especially June knows that it's because it's one of Serena's followers. Very, very scary. Now in this episode, Tuello also has to say goodbye to Serena and has to release her from government custody. Serena is not declaring herself as an American, is insisting that she has allegiance to Gilead. She is kind of in this funky position where she's kind of in a no man's land, and she doesn't have necessarily the same rights and privileges as other people, but she is able to get away with this by being within property of Gilead that is in Canada. And Tuello, being the weirdo who likes Serena that he is, tells her that he wants to give her one more opportunity, claim asylum as an American. And Serena says she is not an American, that she pledges her allegiance to God. And I'm like, really? God? That's where you're going with this? Because I think at this point we all know that Gilead isn't really ruled by God. That is all just a bunch of freaking shit that they made up in order to get away with the men taking control of all the women and doing all of the funky shit that they're doing. It really has no real bearing on God. They just use it as an excuse. Now, after that, Tuello goes and pays a visit to Luke and June, who want to know what is going on with their daughter. So he had gone to check up on her. He said that she looks good, that she looks healthy, everything's okay. But this isn't enough. This isn't enough for them. It's not enough for Luke. Luke is very upset. Like, you're that close to my daughter, and all you can give me is she looks healthy? Like, what good are you? And June proceeds to tell Tuello that he's a disappointment. I mean, I think we have to understand that this is a government official, and under government regulations, there are only so many things that he can do. And in those kinds of situations, his hands really are going to be tied. And I think June knows this, but June wants more from him. June wants everybody to sacrifice, like she sacrificed. And June has no problem sacrificing everybody in the process. It's not a realistic expectation. And so when June says that that Tuello is a disappointment, he proceeds to tell her that maybe her expectations are unrealistic. Yes, this is true. But I get where they're coming from. I mean, this is their kid, and their kid has been there for years. Their kid is now in that preteen age area now, when their kid came there at like 5 years old and they still can't get her back. That's frustrating. Knowing that, like, they can see her, they have some idea where she is, yet they can't touch her. Tuello is a government employee, and he can only work within the realms of the laws and loopholes that are in place. Now, of course, also tells them about Serena being released, about her occupying this building where she is going to work at a cultural facility, trying to kind of advertise the cultural aspects of Gilead. And this is very, very upsetting to them, and they want to know where she is. But this is another legal thing, that you can't just tell people the address of somebody that you don't agree with. It's just not allowed. But June does find out where this cultural place is. She goes to take a trip over there. There's all these acolytes out there, all praising the good graces of Serena Waterford and their delusional ideas of what they think Gilead is, which is very upsetting to June. And of course, June had, I had said something in the previous episodes about thinking that maybe June was burying the gun so that she could have it there for later on if she needs it, which seems to be the case. But she also buried it without any kind of protection, so it's all dirty and it gets jammed up. She tries to take it to use, I think, to threaten Serena, maybe to threaten the acolytes that are out there. But that does not go as planned, because her gun is all jammed up with all the gunk and mud and dirt that she buried it in. So she, of course, has to clean that thing up. June does see Serena in the window, and Serena does spot June outside peering in. Of course, this strikes up some anxiety in Serena, and it makes June very upset. She can't freaking shoot anybody with her jammed up gun. So she goes back to her house and tells Luke what just happened and how much it is taking within her to not just go and shoot Serena straight in the head. And Luke seems to be completely okay with this. I think at this point, it seems like they are seeing some sort of therapist, and which is good. She has needed it. She has needed it very, very badly, and they need it too. Like, they both need it. I don't know about both of them going together. I think that probably should be part of it. It probably should be some on her own, some on his own, and some of them together. But she's at least getting some mental assistance, and they are getting guidance on how to proceed through this situation where June obviously has severe trauma that she is trying to get through, and their whole family is trying to keep her from stepping right over the edge and kill somebody else. So it is interesting watching June go through this, and she seems to be very cognizant that she has issues. She seems to be very cognizant that she is struggling with controlling herself, but she also seems to be at least trying to control herself to an extent. And she is going to her loved ones to try to get some extra support so that they know, look, this is what's going on. I feel like I'm going to snap. I feel like I'm going to shoot this woman in the head, and I don't know if I can stop myself. Like I said, Luke just seems like, yeah, like I get it, cuz what's happening is really freaking horrible. And even if you were not ever in June's position, after everything that's happened, you know that, yeah, I don't blame you for wanting to kill Serena, because I want to fucking kill Serena too. And I think half of us watching probably want to kill Serena if we were in that position. He does, he does proceed that way, but then he tells June, he presents the option. What if you did this? If you went ahead and you shot her in the head, what are the consequences? What's going to happen? And I think that's something that's very important to really lay out. What is the reality? Okay, you want to do this, you feel like you have very little control over it, and you feel like you really, really want to do it. So if you do this thing that you really, really want to do, that you're having a hard time keeping yourself from doing, what are the consequences of doing it? You lose Nicole. You lose us. You go to jail. And we lose any opportunity that we ever had of getting Hannah back. So I think that helps her to kind of snap back a little bit and realize, because I think if nothing else, June does at least acknowledge some logic when it comes to some of these things. She doesn't always plan things out very well, and she is selfish, and she doesn't always treat other people the way that they should be treated, and she doesn't always consider what other people are dealing with or going through, or how her actions are going to affect them. But she does seem to understand a little bit of logic, and you place a little bit of logic and explain it to her, and she swallows it and understands. One of the things, though, I wanted to talk about is like the differences, at least initially, between the methods that Luke wants to take in order to deal with the Serena problem versus the methods that June wants to take to deal with Serena problem. So initially, June wants to kill her. June wants to kill every one of her followers, put them all on the ground. They're not a problem anymore. And then maybe we can move on, because she sees this as long as they are alive and breathing, they will keep on trying to spread like a freaking virus. So June sees it as something, we have to squelch this. We have to kill it. We have to kill them and get rid of them so that this is no longer spreading. Whereas Luke sees it as, okay, let's not get so crazy. We can't kill everybody. Like, that's not going to help our situation. It's not going to work. Let's try something more level-headed first, using legislation and policy and regulations and stuff like that. And this is something that I think is very important. You should always, like when you're really trying to achieve something that requires major change of laws and policies, try to use legal procedures, because sometimes there's stuff available that can get your problem solved without going to extremes. But sometimes that stuff doesn't work, and getting laws and things changed tends to take a very long time. But in this situation, they don't have to change the laws. They need to show that the building that Serena is not to code and should be shut down. And Luke requests, please let me at least try this. Because I know a person, he can check it out, he can see that there's things wrong with this place, and we can possibly get them shut down. So June at least agrees to that, especially after he says, look, if you shoot her in the head, we lose Nicole, we lose you, and we lose any opportunity of getting Hannah back. So after that, June's like, okay, yeah. Whereas June's method, I get it. It's like, it sounds so passive and it sounds so slow. It feels like not enough. So I do get where, June wants to take the violence route. June wants to end them, because if they're ended, they can't continue to spread their message. I think with any kind of thing like that, you kill one person who has this message, and there's going to be other people taking over to fill that vacuum. Oh, yeah, I was so happy to see that Moira seems to be in a much more empathetic, compassionate position now with June. I think she needed to see that June was actually getting counseling, that somebody was helping to get her to a more stable position, and now she's like, at least I feel okay with you being with Nicole now. That's not nothing. And Moira seems to be like really being a real good friend now, which I'm glad to see that, because that seemed to really be kind of splintered for a while, and now it looks like they're getting more back to that, at least, that she kind of gets where June is coming from and is able to provide the kind of support that June needs without just brushing her off, or without just saying we can't take any risks with her being here. And back in Gilead, we get to see that Janine is up and she is going. She is very frustrated because her legs are not working right, and she feels very crippled. And Aunt Lydia keeps spouting off all these biblical passages and stuff like that, which is just making Janine more frustrated. And she just straight up tells her, stop quoting the Bible. My legs don't work. And you can see just the frustration in her face. And she asks about Esther. And Lydia tells her that no, Esther hasn't woken up yet. She acts really freaking horrible about it. It serves her right. She tried to kill one of her sisters. What kind of person does that? And Janine just straight lays into her. I was so happy to see this side of Janine. Just this spunk. She's telling Lydia to stop quoting these passages. And Lydia's asking, well, don't you think that after all that you've been through, that there's a reason for this? And Janine is like, I just don't care anymore. So yeah, there's that. There's this frustration that I've been through so much, and you've put me through so much hell, and we've all been through so much hell, that I just don't care. Why should I give a shit about this stuff? But she's got this spunk now, which I love to see. I hated that they freaking tortured the spunk right out of her for years, and now she's like, I have no reason to keep this stuff to myself. So she's laying into her. I warned you. That is a child. She was abused. I told you about the situation. I warned you about her, and you put her there anyway. You cry about your precious girls and everything, but I've seen what you do. We know what you do. I can see the real you. I loved that line. I see you. I see the real you. And I think some of us that are involved in political kind of progressive movements, sometimes we'll make comments like that, I see you, meaning like we acknowledge you and your identity and your experience and all of that. This is also seeing you, but this is like, I see your identity. I see who you are. You want to claim that this is for God's work, but you are doing horrible, awful things to these people. And that's who you are. And then later on, we get to see Lydia talking to Lawrence, and Lawrence is addressing they had another incident with handmaids attacking each other or whatever, and he mentions that at least, nobody died this time. But he also states that they're trying to open things up a little bit for Gilead to actually be seen from the outside world. And he needs the handmaids to be in tip-top shape. He needs everything to look above board so that nobody will see any horrible, funky shit going on. None of the handmaids killing each other. None of the aunts torturing the handmaids. None of this stuff. Like, it all needs to be just right to present a good image to the rest of the world. And this leads Lydia to decide that here's her opportunity. I have an idea. I believe that the handmaid program needs to be completely overhauled. That rather than the handmaids being contracted to a commander, staying in their home, doing their duty until they get pregnant, go into labor, and have the child and breastfeed and all of that. Instead, they would stay at the Red Center, and the commanders and wives would come in for the ceremonies so that these handmaids are not within the household all this time, because so many things are happening to these girls behind closed doors that they have no control over. And I don't know how much Lydia really knows or acknowledges, but there is stuff that goes on with them from the commanders and from the wives and from everybody else within the household. Remember when June was being questioned about Emily? And those people came in there, and June was thought to be pregnant, and they start questioning her and torturing her when she was assumed to be pregnant. Like, that kind of stuff happens also in these households. And Aunt Lydia can't always be there to protect them. Somebody else that has their best interest in heart can't always be there to protect them. So I think that she's got her heart and her mind in the right place when it comes to this. I think she's going to have to find something that Commander Lawrence will be more open to, because he's right. These commanders are never going to go for something like that. But maybe there are some other things that can be done to help to ensure a safer space for these handmaids when they are in the commander's homes. I think eventually they'll come to some kind of conclusion to make things at least better. I'm glad to see that she is actually trying to make substantive changes and not just little subtle things, or not doing what she believes is the right pious thing to do. I mean, these people misrepresent passages in the Bible all the time. And I'm not a particularly religious person. I used to go to church. I used to be a pretty devout Christian, and I am no longer. I don't go to church. I do not consider myself a Christian anymore. And I have my reasons, but we're not going to go into that. I do love when Lydia did present this idea, Lawrence is like, "What are you smoking? Do you really think these commanders are going to go for that?" And he said these are pious men and they need a little kink. And I'm like, pious men and need kink. These are not two phrases that I think of as going together, but I kind of get it. I kind of get where he's coming from. Yeah, I think when you are in a position where you're supposed to be all upright and doing the right thing all the time, which these guys are not, but they're trying to portray themselves as being these upright, pious people. And if you are trying to play this role of this upright, pious person all the time. Eventually, something's got to give, and you're going to want to have a little fun sometimes. It's just that taking advantage of these women and assaulting them and raping them and putting them in really freaking horrible, awkward positions over and over again, to me, that's just like, no, let them have some fun, but fucking the shit that they are doing with these handmaids, that stuff is like, no, it needs to stop. But he's like, that this is how it is. And she's like, do I? And he's like, don't you? Because, yeah, it does look like Lydia does a lot of acting like everything is for God while really being willfully ignorant about so much of what's going on. And that's what I felt like that statement was. Like, you're being willfully ignorant. You know that this is going on, and you're acting like it's not. But it's the reality, and you know it. We have a scene where Luke goes to Serena to let her know that her stuff's going to be shut down. But he tries to give her some choices. Look, my wife is going to kill you. I'm not going to do a goddamn thing to stop her. And frankly, here's these violations. Your place is going to get shut down. Okay? But it doesn't have to go this way. If you just help us get Hannah back, we can leave you alone. And maybe I won't just let June kill you. But she's Serena. Serena's not going to put up with that. So Serena insinuates, hey, you could have freaking come back for your daughter, and you never tried. Your wife made sacrifices. She did all kinds of shit to sacrifice to try to get that kid out, but you didn't. But it must be some solace to you that at least Nick was there to give her some support. That was really sticking the dagger and just dig it in there. And that, of course, made Luke very upset. Talk about cracking his poor ego. It also made him really freaking mad. Like, at least, I think this gets him to a position where he's getting to see a little bit of the real Serena, so he can better understand why it is that June feels so much hatred and anger towards this woman. Like, he can feel now what this woman does in order to make somebody hate her so much. And so that puts Luke in this different position where he is more on June's side, where he is starting to see this desire to be violent, to actually take this woman out, where he can be more of a bad boy and stop trying so hard to do everything the right way and to be careful and everything, because he can feel like why June has this seething hatred and anger towards Serena. And June has another moment over with the acolytes. This time she sees that something's going on, and she gets out of her car, and this, and the acolytes are like fighting with her people that are against them, and this guy is like being a complete fucking douche. And what was it he said? He was trying to insinuate that this woman needed a man to put her in her place. Like, this is the kind of shit that makes you guys not be taken seriously. This is the kind of shit that makes people hate you. Like, when you make comments like that, they deserve fucking righteous hatred to be directed right back at you. I'm sorry, but that to me is the reality. And this guy was just a freaking piece of work. And if you think that he's like the exception, no. It's not like most guys are like this, but there are plenty of guys that are. And there is enough of this that it makes things very, very, very uncomfortable for a lot of people. But for some people, it's more than uncomfortable because that situation, that was dangerous. That was dangerous. And this guy is knowingly being a complete jackass and causing hatred and ire. Moira tries to be Moira. Moira tries to talk him down and talk reason, and he's just a complete ass. So he decks her. Like, what kind of freaking guy decks a girl? There are guys that do that. There are guys that have no problem decking. And I'm not saying that a woman should be able to hit a guy and a guy shouldn't be able to hit a girl. I'm saying if you're in a freaking argument and your first thought when somebody disagrees with you or somebody says something that you dislike is to freaking hit them in the face, you have a fucking problem and you need to get it straightened out. The problem is not with that person that made you mad. The problem is with you. But yeah, he decks Moira. June pulls out her gun because, I mean, June is not in a good freaking stable state. I don't blame her at all. Even if she was in a stable state, I think grabbing her gun at that point was probably the right thing to do. Frankly, yes, you're likely to get locked up for it, but he rose to the occasion and she brought it. It was as it should be. Luke shows up and June's like, what are you? Like, why are you here? And Moira tells him to get her out of there. And so he runs off with her, but then they immediately run into Serena, who is trying to escape from the chaos that is going on down there. And June sees Serena, and she grabs for the gun, but she looks at Serena's stomach and that knowledge that that is a baby in there. She can be very, very selfish and very, very hateful, but killing an unborn child, I don't think is something that that June is willing to go and do right now. And she's got enough, she's got like just barely enough control to keep herself from doing that. But like she says in the car, you know, I stopped myself this time, but I can't promise that I'm going to stop myself next time. And that's the reality. Like, yeah, she stopped herself this time. She has just that little bit of control, but there's no guarantee she's going to have that control next time. And there's no guarantee that that thought about that baby, that unborn baby, is going to enter her mind next time either. So while that unborn was Serena's saving grace this time, and June's saving grace, so June doesn't hopefully have to go to prison, it doesn't mean that it's going to be there next time. When that whole fiasco was going on with that guy being a complete dick and decking Moira and everybody yelling and shouting, and June pulls out her gun, like I immediately started thinking, let's start a riot, let's start a riot. I definitely think that is a good song for this episode, at least for good chunks of this episode. Let's start a riot. Oh, and one thing I noticed when Luke asked for the gun, and I wasn't sure exactly what he was going to do with it, because I suspected that he might try to hide it, but I also knew that he was still upset and angry at the shit that Serena had pulled. So I knew there was a chance that that might not be it. And he of course went to the latter side and was like, messing with the gun, and seemed to be okay with June going the route that she was going, and he was being, more aggressive and assertive than he usually is, and that seemed to turn June on. I mean, like, you could see this immediate switch, because we haven't seen any real intimacy in them in a while. And when we have seen intimacy with them since June's been back, it's been very fractured and hard to deal with. like she'll be in the mood or whatever, but then something will set her off. And that stuff was going on when she first got there. She didn't have the tools to figure out how to deal with that. I want to say it's not an excuse, but it is part of the reality. Outside of that, like, even since there has been some time and they've been able to seem to be able to get more on the same page, I still haven't seen a lot of intimacy from them. And so this was like, this side of Luke was immediately turning her on, and we definitely haven't seen this side of Luke before. And of course, that does lead to things. Of course, we have the namesake of the show, Dear Offred, which was because Serena sent that letter to June, and June gets it, and it says freaking Offred on the top of it, and it's an invitation to her stupid cultural center or whatever. Freaking really, the level of goddamn evil in that woman to fucking do that shit. And the reality that both her and Fred couldn't seem to let go of that name Offred. I'm sorry, like, once she's no longer assigned to your household, she's no longer Offred, even in the Gilead system. And if you guys are such true believers in your system that you created, then you should know that, acknowledge that, and you should not be calling her Offred. And they do it regularly, and they do it in front of everybody. But for Serena, this is intentional. For Fred, I think it's his weird freaking infatuation that he had with her. For Serena, it's an intentional dig, like everything else with her. So after the scene with the car, they do end up having sex, and they have this little moment where Luke sees the gunshot wound that June has on her abdomen, and then after that, June sees the gunshot wound that Luke has on his abdomen. And I had totally forgot, like, I knew that they had both been shot, but I it wasn't connecting. And then I finally was like, oh yeah, they did both get shot. It was at completely separate times, but they definitely both got shot. And they both got shot in Gilead. It's like their joint battle scar that gives them this connection. And I want to say something about the song that was playing at the end. You Will Never Break the Chains. I don't know if that's the name of the song, but I definitely recognized it, and I know a lot of the words, so I was definitely kind of like singing it to myself while it was playing. I can't help myself, but I think most of the songs that they do play on Handmaids have underlying meanings, and I feel like that definitely has to have some kind of underlying meaning. If you don't love me now, you will never love me again. I don't know the whole song, so anyway. Anyway, we also see, because they had to take Serena out of there because of the chaos from the riot, they had to take her out of there to a new building. And yeah, I don't remember exactly what Ezra said, but he said something that sounded like really sketchy to me about the refugee or something like that, or refuge or refugee. And yeah, I wasn't too sure about that. And he drops her off at this lady's house who's like playing the commander's wife or whatever. I don't know if she's just an acolyte that's trying to play the part, or if she actually does have some connection to some commander or something. I suspect she's an acolyte and is just trying to play a Gilead commander's wife when she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. She's definitely off her rocker. She's definitely got that freaking acolyte craziness about her. So I am looking forward to seeing what that will bring to the situation. I suspect there will be some good benefits from that for Serena, at least for a little while, but I wonder if this is not some heavy scheming to freaking get into I'll just say a more oppressed situation. That's my thought. Oh, and I saw a trailer or advertisement or something for the upcoming shows, and oh my god. I'm not going to give it away, but some crazy stuff looks like it's going to be happening. And not necessarily for the good of June or the good of Serena or the good of Gilead, but not necessarily for the bad either. I'll just leave it at that. It definitely looks intense. We leave Serena with Mrs. Ryan Wheeler, who definitely seems to be a little off the deep end and is overly excited, seems to be like the biggest fan of Serena, and praises her miracle baby and gives the baby all the loving. But I can't wait to see what the rest of the show has to offer us. This is getting exciting. I'm liking this. I really am. I know I've heard other people that think that, I don't know, like it's going too slow, or they just don't like it that much, or they find some of the topics and arcs and all of that to be repetitive and boring. But I'm liking this. I'm really enjoying this season. And maybe some of it is that it's been so long and I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting for more Handmaids. But I really feel like this is quality content. I really like it. Anyway, see you next time. Until next time, I'll see you when I see you. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you want more content, click subscribe. If you click that little bell and click all, then you'll get more content notifications.